Hey friends, Anna Sabramowitz here. It is Monday. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you here. And if you haven't been here before, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Anna Sabramowitz, and I help people plan, draft, write, and launch successful e-learning scenarios, and also deal with all the other stuff that goes along with it, which is basically talking to quite a few people, getting them to answer your questions, getting them to give you good feedback, and getting them to share their stories so that you can craft something powerful and something that could really, as far as I'm concerned, change the world. All right. Now, with that message, I wanted to talk to you about today about something I noticed quite a bit. We do as people who are, let's just say we're very multifaceted as designers, as e-learning developers. And what happens when you have a giant skill set like that, you sometimes forget to let go of your babies and spend time tweaking things that actually eat up your valuable time. And also what happens is you end up delivering on value that is not your best value. Let me get more into that. So I was in a discussion forum the other day, and somebody said that they were looking for more variety of characters for their e-learning, and they were asking where should they go, because really what they were considering is doing their own photo shoots and creating their own characters. No. I was like, that's interesting. There is stuff out there. Thank you for asking and not going off and doing a whole photo shoot of you trying to basically create a new product, which is already out there, right? So, and I'll actually have a couple of links in the video to resources that you can use if you are looking for that kind of stuff. Now, one of the things we have to realize, and this is very important because this is the law I'm going to talk about, is that as a multifaceted designer and developer, you have to get very brutal about where you add value. So what is it? Where's your magic superpower, right? A lot of times, it might not be in the technical aspect. The technical aspect is actually quite easy, as far as I'm concerned, because there's tons of people who have dedicated themselves to that. They're doing things like palettes, graphic design. They design their own fonts. Like, that's all done. Where we need to be masters is the strategy and the fundamentals. And I was actually watching a talk just recently with Dr. Stella Lee, who I will be interviewing. So watch for that interview here. And she was talking at Google about adaptive learning and basically chatbots and all this stuff that's, basically meant to augment the experience and for the learner and make it more customized and make it adapt to their specific needs. And then kind of at the end of the talk, Dr. Lee said, that's all good, but if you've designed your learning in a way that's super contextual, relevant, easy to understand, all those other things, like people can relate what they're doing here to the real world, there's a huge connection that way, and the fundamentals are there in design, the adaptive learning, it's sometimes not even necessary, because if you focus on it enough, we already do that for our learners. So, but if it's designed the right way, right? So you can't ignore that stuff. And so what happens is, I think we can fall into this, when you have a big project and this is like what they tell us, like the really successful people do. Mark Twain said, if you want to get something done, you got to eat the frog first thing in the morning. Well, what he was talking about is the fact that when you look at a project, there's probably lots of things in there that are like really making you anxious and you dread doing. But when you examine it closely, those are the things that you really should be working on. But we end up working on the things that are fun. So things like tweaking colored boxes and moving things around and choosing templates. No. If that's your thing, then that's good. But then hand off the strategy to somebody else who's dedicated to that thing, because you need that. So it's good for you to set direction, but do not invest so much time in it. And the reason I brought up the law of diminishing returns is because I first learned about it from a documentary I watched on the guys who make South Park, the cartoon. And what they do is, because South Park is so current, right, needs to stay on top of the current events and trends, and they need to comment on it, their rollout time is super fast. They have to roll out an episode like once every 6 weeks or something like that. Don't quote me on the timelines, but basically what happened is they examined that timeline and they realized that after, let's say, 2 weeks of work, the guys would go back and like tweak it and refine the script, refine the graphics, and they realized that after that 2 weeks, the amount of effort that was being put in was in like inversely proportional to the amount of how much better they were making each episode. So the law of diminishing returns says that after a certain point, even though you're putting in the same amount of hours, the value and the quality of that thing that you're working on actually goes like it goes down. So now at first it was 100%. Now when you work on it again the next week, you maybe improved it. You spent just as much time, but you maybe improved it 5%. So he's like, okay, this is wrong. What can I do to put it out faster? Be okay with good enough is good enough, but produce something faster and in a more agile way. So then they moved their process now is 2 weeks, which is crazy because I think they were like, we can't do it. And then they did it and they're doing it. So that was watching their process. I recommend that documentary. I forgot what it's called. I'll put it underneath the video, but it's awesome because it just it helps you realize where your strengths are, makes you think about that. Where can I add the most value and what's most important, right? The minimum viable product. So just for a quick recap, focus on your strategy and fundamentals. If those are right, you can make everything work on basically a piece of paper and a bunch of stickies. That's how good some training is designed, that they don't even need tech to make it work, which is great. So aim for this. And everything else, cream. Then remember the law of diminishing returns. What's good enough so that I'm not spending 10 more hours on this and I'm only making a 2% increase in quality, right? So think about diminishing returns. And then the other thing is learn where your strengths are so that you can quickly hand off the rest. There are 2 sites that I recommend to you. One of them is called Fiverr. And Fiverr is where you go, you get freelancers. They'll do things like cut out pictures for you. They'll mock up images. They'll like anything, quick voiceover, but done by a pro. Like, a lot of people do their own voiceover. No, just hire a pro, and there it's so affordable. It makes all the difference. So suggest Fiverr. And then the other one, I use a lot of faces in my training. Because I do scenarios, and especially if you want something like when you're using scenarios for conversations, like in branch track, sometimes even a shift of the eyes can be a really good indication of mood and things like that, especially if your conversations are nuanced or you just want a little bit of variety instead of just the standard angry, 4 poses. E-learning art has basically a repository of really normal looking people, great variety. Like you haven't seen them before. They're great. They're fresh. And there's like 200 poses of each person, which is wonderful because if you want to create a whole entire story from day to day, they even change clothes. So it's pretty awesome. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you had a wonderful beginning of the day, and now it's going to be even better because you watched this video. Yay! Thanks. Oh yes, I have some news in about less than 6 weeks now because I started it last week. I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to do the 6 weeks thing. In 6 weeks, I'm going to be launching my e-learning scenario design cohort bootcamp. It's there's no sweating except brain work required. Basically, I'm taking on a small group of students. We're going to be working through how to design scenarios. So they're going to be supported through that process every step of the way. We're going to have live weekly Q&A calls and teaching basically sessions. And so basically everybody's going to be kind of working through together through that content. So I think this is going to be like the game changer for a lot of the students that I've had, is because they are now going to be not only learning from each other, but seeing what other people are doing, how they're thinking about this project, how they're interacting with their subject matter experts, because that's a huge area where everybody needs a lot of help, is how do I get the right info out of the subject matter expert, because he doesn't know what the hell I'm doing. And I don't know what his domain is like because I'm not the expert. So how do you, get those conversations going so you get a good scenario story going? So those things are going to be awesome. We're going to have a private Facebook group, and then we're going to also deconstruct some examples together to see what's working, what's not. I'm thinking of running it an extra week. So weeks 1 to 6 are going to be basically us building out our project together, whatever project you're working on. And then the last week is going to be us refining and just going back to any spots that were difficult. So 7 weeks would be, I think, a good fit. Anyways, if that's something that you're interested in, just put interested in the comments. I will once I've got the site up and it's ready to go and you can sign up, then I will put that message up and share the link. So yeah, that's it. I'm about to do another fabulous interview, which will be released as soon as I get it published. All right. Have a great rest of the day. Take care, friend. Bye.